Welcome to Lesson 1, Introduction to the Book of Romans. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to appreciate the role of the background study to the understanding of an ancient letter like Romans. By way of introduction, we want to say that the book of Romans has had a great impact in the history of the church. People like Martin Luther and John Wesley were impacted by the study of the book of Romans, especially when they had that exposition on the issue of justification that comes by faith alone. The book of Romans is therefore very important in the Bible. If there is any book the Christian should understand, it is this epistle. Why? Because it is a doctrinal epistle. It presents doctrinal truth. There are so many doctrines of the Christian faith which are expressed in this epistle. Doctrines like justification, doctrines like sanctification or holiness, and all these great doctrines of the Christian faith as we are going to be seeing them. It is also a dispensational epistle. It gives dispensational truth. When we talk about a dispensation, it is the time period between the past, present, and the future. And we are going to be seeing that especially in chapter 9 to 11, where the apostle is talking about Israel's past, present, and future. It is also an epistle that gives us practical truth. It helps us to understand how to apply the doctrines of the Christian faith in our lives and in our ministries. When we begin to talk about the background issues, we are going to be focusing on the author as the first item. And we say that the author is the Apostle Paul. You can read in the manual on some of the arguments that are presented on that. But what we can say is that Paul is the author of this letter. The letter was probably carried by a lady who was known as Phoebe, as you read in Romans chapter 16 and verses 1. And you will also see that this letter contains some of the other material that may be in the other epistles of Paul. And some writers have said that this letter is like a seedbed of all the other letters of Paul. It's a very detailed letter. Now, let me address why this letter was written. This letter was written because of about four things. Number one, to prepare Christians for the visit of the Apostle Paul, which he had said that he is going to visit them sooner. But the second is to prepare them or instruct them on the basic doctrines of the Christian faith so that they are not deceived by the false teachers. He also wrote to explain the relationship between Israel and the church so that they will not be led astray concerning that relationship. He also wrote so that he can explain to them their duties to God and their duties to one another and the duties they have towards the state. The third thing that you'll address in the area of background is the church at Rome. How did we get the church there, considering that Paul did not go to Rome first as a preacher? The argument that has been put forward is that in the Pentecostal revival in Acts chapter 2, we have some people who came from Rome, and so they carried the message back. Another argument is that there are contacts that Paul met in his other ministries, and these contacts received the message and went with that message to Rome. The third argument is that Rome was a great city. It was a great center of human civilization. As it is with busier cities and great cities, people come from all over the world. And it is said that people may have come from all over the world and come to Rome. And you know, every time people move, they also move with their faith. And so there is this argument that says, yes, there are people who came to Rome, and they came carrying their faith, and then that faith moved amongst the people there. We now address the theme of the book of Romans. The theme of the book of Romans is righteousness that comes by faith. In chapter 1 to 3, you look at the need for that righteousness, how that righteousness is needed. In chapter 3 to 8, how God provided that righteousness through Jesus. Chapter 9 to 11, how Israel refused God's righteousness. And in chapter 12 to 16, how that righteousness is practiced in daily practice. And so when you look at the theme of that book is righteousness that comes by faith. The issue is that righteousness does not come from works. Righteousness comes by faith. As we come to the final part of this letter, Paul is doing some introductory information about himself, about the reason why he is writing, and he is also talking about the message that he is preaching. You see him talking or greeting them, and in his greetings he talks about the substance of the gospel as about Jesus Christ, and the purpose of the gospel as bringing many to the obedience of the faith. And he also calls the receivers, those who are receiving the letter, the recipients, as the saints of God. So he introduces himself as a preacher, as an apostle, and also introduces the letter. Thank you. We shall be coming back for lesson 2.